The life of Jesus of Nazareth, spiritually given by his Spirit through L.M. Arnold of Poughkeepsie, New York, describing his essence, his oneness with God, and his oneness with brethren, his relationship to the Word, and his relationship to man. March 1853. Sermon on Faith. The present is a time, a transition, a passage from death to life, from stagnation to activity. The actual is giving place to another form and dispensation. The last shall be first established, and then it shall be first in all. There is in every man a witness who will declare to him his duty, and show him the way to perform it. Do you believe it, O formal sectarian? O imaginative spiritualist? Do you believe God can make known to each of his finite images what he will and how they can please him? Do you feel willing that he should do so? Or do you ask and hope that he will let you follow your own chosen path, whether it will lead to a returning circle or diverging erratic course, whether it remains bound by the wall of a sect or disdains the control of God's laws, whether it be the blind guide or the unseeing one, the visionary, the contriver of unworthy theory that man's reason is sufficient for him, and can enable him to try the spirits. There is in the minds of all men a desire to be happy, and a desire to know what future happiness will consist in. But there is only one fountain of bliss, and that is God. Man cannot be guided by God without experiencing the reward of obedience. Neither can he be led by reason of carnal affection without experiencing unhappiness. Well, carnal affection doesn't have to be valueless, you know. There is for man but one path for happiness, but one straight and narrow way that leads to life eternal, to life in God, and that is obedience and submission to God as a unit, as a sole and only master, securing every exertion and monopolizing every faculty of the human will, and being to the man all in all. Not that man is not bound to exert every faculty pertaining to his body and mind, but that he shall exert them in submission to that master he ought to choose, and devote himself to securing and establishing in his own and other minds the knowledge and love of God, and of his own will and requirements, his power and his attributes. The love of God is a consuming fire which consumes everything which is not of its own nature or semblance, or in harmony with it. The man who possesses love of God, manifested in his conduct, realizes it in his daily walks. He acts in fear of God, but not in fear of God's judgments, for he loves God and believes God loves him. Well, that doesn't mean that you don't want to, if God's judgment is just, then, but your actions, as long as your actions are okay, don't, fear the consequences, whatever comes, whatever comes. He fears separation from God by an obscuration or withdrawal of his love for God. Not that for this God will punish him, but that in consequence of this he must be separated from God till he can again form and establish in his heart that love of God which brings him into harmony with God, into a reciprocal interchange of love with God. He does not need to declare his love by words, for he declares it by his acts, but he may declare it by words, whenever those words will benefit other men and lead them to establish the same relationship to God. The union and harmony, the communion and interchange of love and action between themselves and God It is this union and communion of which all others are but a type, and this union and communion it is which makes a man a son of God. Remember, son belonging to God, not literal son of God. El or Yah at the end or something like this would have we'll look in Aramaic. It is not man's own effort which accomplishes this, but it will not be without man's own effort. God will help, but he must be asked. God will work, but a man must be willing to be worked upon. God is our Father, but he wants us to acknowledge it, and he will have us do so before we are allowed to experience that we are his sons. Be then desirous to seek God where and when he is to be found. He is everywhere, but where we can experience his presence except within ourselves. The prophet in olden time could not discover him in the whirlwind or the earthquake, but in the still small voice, which does not even reach the outward ear, much less shake and alarm a whole community. The internal of man can only hear this voice. When he only will hear it, who listens with ardent and pure desires for its manifestation within him. He only will hear it who has faith in God and love for him, faith in him as a divine master, a ruling power, an unfailing source of everlasting happiness, love for him as a father, affection for him as a friend, and confidence in him as the source of all truth. Let all, then, seek God where and when he is to be found. Let all be ready to retain him or their knowledge of him when found, and let everyone show by their life, conversation, and action that they know of his manifestation to them, and that they regard him as King of kings, by which should be understood that his commands are to them higher than any other law, and that he will be obeyed rather than the favor of men, the violence of a mob, or the decrees of the most powerful of earthly governments. Now, one thing that I would say is that sometimes by not only force, but sometimes even coercion, people are made to do things wrong. Let's blame those who are doing the coercing. Some Christians have said, "Well, you don't put the blame on the people who say and do things that they're fearing for their life and bodily harm, so they're doing." I blame the people who are doing that to them.